run! Kerry Carpenter!
They give it to Jameer. Big hole. There he goes down to the 20-yard line. Angling to the 15. Gone, baby! 5! End zone! Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Cade to the basket. Hooks on the run. He hits it. Pistons are back up.
Pass over the line. Here's Kane on a change. He scores! He caught the Flyers changing. Patrick Kane with a shot inside the left goal post.
It's Williams in motion. Low snap. Melrose stopped! Michigan makes a stand and comes up with a milestone playoff victory.
This is the Sports Kid Podcast. Here's your host, the Sports Kid.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. I am the Sports Kid, and this is my dad, and we're here to bring you the latest on Detroit sports and more.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Sorry we're a little late. Been dealing with some technical difficulties tonight. Always fun on a Monday to try to deal with those. We have a special guest on tonight, and trying to get him and his audio working has been a pain. A couple weeks ago when we had Zach on, it was the same issue. So we will work on that in the meantime over the next week and try to figure out why that's happening. It's a pain in the butt, a little stressful, but we are here. We are live. Thanks for tuning in. Again, we will be here generally every Monday night, 7:30, except for next week. We will be recording live Sunday evening, I think about 7 p.m.
Why?
Because I may or may not be here on Monday night, remember? So next Sunday, tune in, 7 p.m. We will be here live, Facebook, YouTube, and again, we're on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon, if you guys haven't found us there yet. We're gearing towards 100 downloads is our first big milestone, so we're getting close to that. And then between Facebook and YouTube, we've had I don't know, it's probably been hundreds. I want to say thousands, but I don't know if thousands is too much. But we've had hundreds of views over the last few weeks, so appreciate you guys for tuning in and watching there. Really appreciate it. And if you haven't already, make sure to follow on all the different platforms. We got the sportskidpodcast.com where you can go and find the different links there. I've got them in the show notes as well. And yeah, so Emery, what do you got for us tonight?
I just want to add one little thing. We got our first pieces of merch made.
Yes, we are wearing official Sports Kid Podcast hats. So stay tuned. We will have some more of those hats and T-shirts and swag coming as well. Yes. So first night to have the hats on.
So we've got a great show for you today. We've got a special guest, Bret from Mitten State Sports Corner, and we're going to be mostly talking about the Red Wings and Pistons playoff push, but we have some other things too. But first, as always, recent scores and updates. Sadly, yesterday, Michigan lost to Illinois 93-73, and Golden scored 22 points and had 22 points and 7 rebounds, and Will T. I don't even know.
We can ask Bret. He probably knows how to pronounce it. Will Shetter? Shetter?
I don't know. Had 9 points and 5 rebounds and 2 assists. They now have a record of 22-7, and in the Big Ten they are 14-4. They are now ranked 17th in the country. Saturday, the Detroit Red Wings lost to the Columbus Blue Jackets 5-3, and a game that was lost due to a bad call. Patrick Kane had 3 goals. No. Something's wrong there, but...
Did you have a typo there?
Yeah. So we'll just go on to the next thing.
Yeah, we'll talk about wings in a bit.
Yeah.
I think Brett might have been there. He'll know all the stats.
Yeah. But last but not least, for our recent scores and updates, yesterday the Detroit Pistons beat the Brooklyn Nets 115-94. Cade Cunningham had 15 points and 9 assists. Malik Beasley had 18 points and 7 rebounds. They now have a record of 34-27.
Yeah, awesome. So our buddy Chad is tuning in. Playoffs, go Wings. Thanks for tuning in, Chad. We are wearing your colors tonight, the maize and blue. Chad is a big Ohio State fan. So thanks for tuning in, Chad. We're wearing these colors tonight for our special guest. Right?
Yeah. So that's it for our recent scores and updates. So now I would like to introduce our special guest for the evening, Bret from the Mitten State Sports Corner.
Let's go. Let's bring him on here. Bret, how are you doing?
Good. How are you guys? Thanks for having me.
Good. We can hear you. Hopefully you can hear us decent.
Yep, I can hear you.
Awesome.
So yeah, thanks for joining us tonight. Can you share with our audience a bit about your podcast and where our listeners can find you?
Yeah, so, we started up, late last summer, July, August time. It's me and another gentleman also named Bret. Ironically, he's got 2 T's. So, we do Detroit sports as well. We're big Michigan fans, and, we've played beer league hockey together for almost a decade now. And so, in that time frame, we've, managed to talk a lot of sports and thought it'd be a good idea to kind of get started doing it officially, and as you guys, have seen too, it's a lot more bumps in the road sometimes than you think about, and it seems like every little turn's a little different, but it's also been a lot of fun, and something that I truly do enjoy and something that I hope that continues. We're on a lot of major platforms just as you are: YouTube, Spotify, Facebook, Instagram. A lot of new stuff coming on our stuff too. We just kind of redid the set, so you'll see some of that stuff coming up soon.
Awesome.
So I've got some quick questions for you. A little
Yep.
segment that we're gonna call Meet the Guests. So these are just like some couple like quick questions so that our viewers can get to know you.
Okay.
What is your favorite Detroit sports team, pro or college?
Well, my favorite Detroit sports team is the Red Wings. I'm actually a hockey player first and foremost. That's what I've always played. I still play, on Sundays and stuff. And so the Red Wings, of course, are going to be my favorite. If we do talk college, it's definitely Michigan, as you guys know. Just to throw that in there as well. But Red Wings have always been a big team for me. I remember, making the playoffs for 20 plus years. That was the golden era of Red Wing hockey. And, before the salary cap became a real thing, to be able to go out and pretty much get who you want, Ken Holland was really good in that era. And once the salary cap hit, things really changed and the team changed and, may have been a little slower to adapt than others, but obviously, as you guys are well aware, they're on the ascent. Especially since Todd McClellan's taken over. So excited to see where that goes.
Yeah, for sure. Who's your favorite player? Currently, it can be on any of the teams and of all time.
So favorite all-time player, is definitely going to most likely be, from the Red Wings, honestly. So I play goalie for our Sunday league, and Chris Osgood, was somebody that I really idolized over the years. I had his number. I mean, all of the plaques and bobbleheads and stuff I got, I always wanted Osgood and was excited when I got hockey trading cards. If I drew Osgood, I mean, I had binder pages upon binder pages of just Osgood cards, but in many different forms. And so, that was big. And when he moved on, Dominic Hasek was another big one. And actually, ironically, I get compared to Hasek a lot as far as style of play, but much less successful. in my Sunday league, because of his style is not very traditional, or was not very traditional. And that's kind of how I play too. So I would say out of those, for all time, current favorite player, it's hard. It's really hard for me. I like a lot of what Larkin's done for the Red Wings, and being a Michigan man, I really, can appreciate that. But I got to tell you, I'm really impressed with what Cade Cunningham's done. He was kind of labeled as a bust amongst many, many people, especially that haven't followed the Pistons a lot. And that to some degree had some warrant, especially with the injury. And then he's been on a bad team. I mean, literally, that's just the facts. He's not been on a very good team or surrounded with a good team, and it took a couple years to get some talent around him, and obviously be coached well. I think he's a guy that needs to be challenged. I think he's somebody that if challenged the right way, and and push the right way. I mean, you can see what he's capable of, and he's leading quite a resurgence, if you will, of the Detroit Pistons, and it's pretty exciting to see.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What is your favorite Detroit sports memory?
So this is overall memory. It doesn't.
You don't have to be at the game or anything like that. It's just the coolest thing that's happened for the Detroit sport.
Man, that's a tough one. I mean, man, that's tough. So I can remember when the Red Wings won the Stanley Cup a couple different times, but in 2004 they won the Stanley Cup against the Carolina Hurricanes, and they won it on my birthday. So that was kind of a cool moment. I'm a June birthday, and so to win it on my birthday was obviously a pretty special moment, I guess, to be able to share with them. I guess you feel somewhat connected in that regard, but I would say that'd be my favorite all time.
Yeah, that's definitely pretty cool. Now, what's the best event you've ever attended?
Yeah, that's tough too. Got the good questions today. There's been so many, I guess, pretty awesome events, and we got a lot coming up. I've really appreciated, I guess, being at the Big House. I mean, I honestly, as a big time Michigan fan, that was, I didn't do a lot of that when I was a kid. I mean, I went to, I think, 2 games. We'd been to more hockey games. We were a hockey family. My brother and I both played. So we didn't get a lot of the football feel, and again, that's just something I always wanted to experience, and I've really got a chance to do that a lot in the last couple of years. And to me, it never really gets old. I mean, no matter how many times you go, no matter who they're playing, I mean, the Big House is just a special place to be, and I can always appreciate being there regardless of the event.
Yeah, we went there last year, and it was definitely really hype and stuff.
What game did you guys go to?
It was
not this past season before.
When they won the national championship, it was,
I think it was Illinois.
Yeah, it was Illinois, and they beat them 52-10 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was kind of raining out, but it was a good time.
Good.
Yeah, definitely pretty cool.
So the next one is,
what's your favorite sport to play?
I'm gonna assume hockey.
You would be correct on that. Hockey would be my favorite for sure. And that's just bias. I mean, that's what I've got the most experience in. Although I can appreciate some backyard football every now and then, but as I get a little older and slower, it becomes more painful.
So did you play through high school or growing up and all that stuff, or I guess share a little bit more about that?
So I started on skates period when I was 3, skated out for the first couple of years, and then became goalie at age 5 and never stopped. My dad was a goalie. He played for Davison. He went to Central and didn't necessarily play for them, practiced with them and stuff here and there. But, so that kind of became a little natural for me personally. I would say that to me is, there's just something about that. You go on the road and in the hotel feel, and there's a lot of games in a season. So, it's an 8-9 month season sometimes for youth. And so, it took up a good chunk of the year and kept me out of trouble. So that was something I've always enjoyed.
Did you play AAA or AA or any of that at that level?
So I played a lot of house, hockey or basic. I did play some travel. Couple of years we got beat up pretty good because we were kind of newer in the area, and some of the teams were more established. I did play high school hockey for usually a couple of seasons, and then I've just played some beer league hockey since graduation.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I can appreciate the Hasek mentality.
Yeah, you do anything you can.
Yeah, flipping on his back, and I mean some of those saves that he would make while he's on his back and somehow kick it, was nuts. And I remember, I'll never forget when the Wings signed him. It was like, what, and it was a big deal. My grandpa, still around. He's 90 years old now. He was big into the Wings there for a bit, and I'll never forget. I don't remember. I was like traveling or somewhere, but I remember calling him when they made that trade. And I'm like, Papa, you'll never guess. And to him it wasn't that big a deal, but like to me, I'm like, this is huge.
It was a big deal. I mean, he was very, very good. It's not like they were trading for a reclamation project. I mean, he was definitely somebody they knew coming in, had a lot of talent, and really they were not it's not like they were for a bad team, so they knew getting into it kind of what they needed, and he ended up being a really good fit.
Yeah, I mean, he won us that cup. How long was he with the Wings? It was a few years, right?
Yeah, I want to say 3-4 years. I mean, I don't remember offhand. I know that there was quite a bit. I would say probably 4 years if I was to guess offhand without looking it up.
Yeah, because he was there in 2004, right? That was his first year, or was it later?
Yeah, I want to say so. Hasek would have been there. Well, I assume he would have been there for the 2008 run, I believe. God, it's been a while since I've looked at this, to be honest with you. It's funny because we looked at it. We did a Red Wings thing on this a few months ago, and and I went through a lot of the dates on that, and I don't remember offhand.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure I got his autograph at one of the parades after the parade. So we're gonna look this up. All right, Dominic Hasek, Detroit Red Wings.
I would have had to been the earlier run, though, I guess, now that I think about it, because he was
he was with
a while, so it would have had to been the earlier run.
Yeah, it was 2003.
Yeah, makes sense.
Here we go. So
It's
2001.
crazy to think how long ago 2008 was.
Yeah, I know. So 2001, 2002, 2003, 2004. Then he went to Ottawa. Well, I guess then he did come back.
Yeah.
2006 through 2008.
So he's here longer than we thought.
Yeah, so he did a little stint in Ottawa, I guess. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm assuming. So I got his autograph in 2004 after the parade. So I went down there with my dad, and we had learned, I think, previously at the Joe, the players' parking lot. I don't know if you'd ever been back there. It's back around the backside of the Joe.
Oh yeah.
And you could go back there and potentially see some of the players. And we saw Hasek and had him sign my jersey. So
that's super awesome.
So
yeah, I mean, I miss the Joe a lot. Joe was, older, and a lot of people griped about, pieces of ceiling falling through, but man, it was just, it was an iconic venue and really had a lot of good Red Wing teams come through there for sure.
Yeah, for me, we've talked about it a little bit. Emery got to experience the Joe. I grew up going there as well, and the LCA I've not, it's wild. I've not been to the LCA. I've not been to any event there, which is crazy. And part of it is like I didn't have the desire for a long time. Like the Joe was the place, like the nostalgia and everything, and I didn't want anything new. I wanted the old, smelly, crappy seats and stairs, and it was like, so we're looking at tickets to go to a game, but
they're not cheap.
No, and that's been the other part of it. We've been debating it and really want to take the whole family, but you're talking a lot of money for 5 and
talk about, like giving up left arm, right arm, maybe your youngest, something like that, just to go to the game nowadays. It's crazy.
Yeah. My new thing I came up with after that Lions loss in the playoffs was how much money am I willing to spend to watch the team lose?
Right.
That's, am I willing to spend, let's say for the Lions, maybe $100, $200? I don't think $200 a ticket because I have to buy 2, right? So I'm talking like $400.
Right.
Is it worth $400 for us to go watch them lose? No. Is it?
And the home's pretty comfy sometimes too, so it's hard to beat that sometimes.
We could buy another TV for $400.
Darn right.
And a lot of food. For the Tigers, we went to the Tigers playoff game, and it was reasonable. We were upper deck, and tickets were under $100 a piece. They were reasonable. It was worth it, and we got to see them win.
It's a bonus.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing now. Is like, do I want to pay that much to get let down? And we're gonna come back to that because I know you were. Yeah, I think you were in Columbus, right, over the weekend.
Bret was. The other Bret was.
Other Bret. Okay.
The other Bret was. Yeah. So
Nice.
he got a last minute invite from a guy that we played hockey with, and got a chance to go down there. And all he told me it was cold, it was so cold. And he said, for a stadium, for a team such as Ohio State, that hosts big football games, 100,000 plus capacity. He's like, having around 95,000 at the Red Wings game, it's about 10K under. He was very surprised at how they actually do that, because he said the bathroom lines were 20 to 30 minutes long. They ran out of merchandise, which is on the NHL more than anything, obviously with the preparation, but they ran out of merchandise early on, and just didn't seem as prepared as as they could have been. And the concourse is older. Ohio Stadium is a little bit older, than some others out there. And so, he said, obviously, as far as iconic venues, it was a good thing to do. He had to take 3 showers to scrub the Buckeye off. But other than that, he said it was a good experience, bucket list item, but, hoping that they can do a little better at the next venue.
Yeah. Have you made it to any of the Winter Classic games?
Not myself. No, I have not. He's actually done a little bit more hockey, rink experiences in that regard. He's got a collection of pucks, from all the rinks he's been to, and that's the bummer part. He tried to get one from this game, and they had already run out before the game started.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's surprising.
Yeah,
honestly,
I think they'd be a little more prepared.
Yeah, and did they sell 90,000 tickets?
Yeah, I think they announced the attendance was, approximately, I think it was the high 94s, just under 95,000, if I'm not mistaken. And, it's like I said, it was approximately 10,000, people below capacity. Although with the concert, they had 21 pilots there after the first, they played. And then, with some of the other, just set up for the rink itself, that did cut into some of the seating, but still he was telling me he was kind of surprised that, still 10,000 under capacity was the number.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's cool. It probably drew in some people from Michigan, obviously, as well, not too far away. I got to experience one of my favorite in-person events was the Winter Classic at the Big House. I think it was 14 or something like that. Yeah.
Against the Maple Leafs.
Yeah. And just the coolest hockey game, I think, experience. And I've been to playoffs and finals games and everything. But being out there, I was with my dad and my best friend and his dad. We were center ice about halfway up, and it's snowing the whole time. I think it snowed. It was a snowstorm. It was like 8 inches, 10 inches of snow or something crazy. Getting out of Ann Arbor was a mess. They had to shovel the ice, in between periods, and just the coolest experience. They ended up losing, but I think they lost in overtime or a shootout or something like that.
and see, they figured out to have 114,000, I think it was, in the big house, and so they went over capacity, which is interesting, I guess, considering what happened this year. But yeah, watching that game on TV, I'm super jealous. You got a chance to go, regardless of the snow, because it looked like a pretty awesome experience.
Just the epitome of like what you think of outdoor hockey, and to watch it, it was awesome. Definitely thankful to go there. So I had some trivia, and then we're gonna get into some things. This is just a quick trivia thing. I saw this earlier on Facebook. It's not really trivia. It's more of a, I guess, like who would you rather type of thing. So there was a post on Facebook I saw earlier of, it was about jersey retirements. And so it was Osgood, Datsuk, Fedorov, or Zetterberg. And the question again was, should we retire their numbers, or which one of those should we retire? Curious to hear your thoughts. I'll share mine when you're done.
Well, I guess I would say, in one regard, I mean, Datsuk has been inducted into the Hall of Fame. So, with that being said, I mean, I think it would tie together very easily, for them to retire Datsuk's number. And really, there hasn't been many players that have come through the league in general that had the type of skill set that Datsuk had. I mean, he absolutely changed the way that defenders defend you. I mean, when I say he literally would undress defenders on the ice, he would. I mean, it was incredible the amount of handwork that he was able to have, and it made it look so easy, and so he was truly an awesome athlete, and an even better human being. Very little words were needed to be said, and you always knew, what he was thinking. So he's just a good humanitarian as well. Biased, I would say Osgood, of course, because, again, he was kind of an idol growing up, but I think, honestly, the Red Wings need to repair the relationship more with Fedorov. There's been a lot of just anxiety from the organization with how things ended with him. And quite frankly, with what he brought to the Red Wings in his time there, was nothing short of remarkable. And quite frankly, I think there was a lot more left in the tank there had the negotiations gone better. On both sides, really. Both sides were to blame for some of that. And, again, I think it's time to get past all of that and acknowledge what he was. And that was an absolutely phenomenal athlete, who honestly, like, I don't think he ever really went 100%. I truly believe that he played at like 80% and was better than everybody on the ice. I mean, when he chose to turn it on, he was absolutely unstoppable. There's no question about that. So I guess I would say it's probably a toss-up between Datsuk and Fedorov.
Yeah. I mean, Fedorov, I think, didn't he go that, at least what they were saying at the time was that he was wanting, to be a captain somewhere. Wasn't that kind of the thing?
Yeah, there was some talk of that, and money. Money was a big thing, which I guess, you're going to hear both sides of the story, and then honestly, the story probably lies in the middle.
Yeah.
But I think in my opinion, I mean, there's talks like these come up in all sports. I mean, the Lions have similar conversations about to go on with, Hutchinson and stuff like that. Big deals coming up for big players, and you have to find groundwork that works for both sides. I mean, some players, as a team, sometimes you're going to have to sacrifice. I mean, that for guys that have sacrificed for you, and also on the player side, like, you got to understand, the grass is not always greener on the other side. I mean, I can give you a prime example. Tyreek Hill leaving Kansas City, going to Miami has been a disaster. He hasn't done anything. I mean, and I think he'd rather look back now and say, man, I'd take a little less money to stay in a better situation. And I think athletes forget that sometimes, that it's sometimes a lot of their success is also directly a result of the environment they're put in. And, no one player is above the team.
Yeah, Tyreek wants out now. And with Fedorov, I mean, what did he do after he left the Wings? I mean, he was still good, but
sure, it wasn't the same.
No, it wasn't the same. Yeah, my thing with the retirement, the numbers. So I shared before, I was actually at, why is it switching? There we go. I was at Yzerman's retirement night, which was cool, and that was a big deal. Yzerman was the captain. Like, nobody could deny that, right? He deserved it. I don't know. Part of me thinks like it should be reserved for like the GOATs, like somebody that was the greatest. And I like when somebody sticks around the whole time. Now with Fedorov, he left. Datsuk, I think definitely could deserve it, but maybe it's just defining what are the requirements for retiring a number. Is it somebody that just made a big impact on the team, or was a huge impact on the team? I don't know. Hall of Fame, you got to make the Hall of Fame. I don't know what the real requirements are. You look at some of the others, I don't know them off the top of my head. I know Gordie Howe, of course. I think Ted Lindsay, a couple of the other guys, Delvecchio. So who is up there with those guys? Like, that's the question I have. Now, if it's honoring Fedorov, I think that's a big deal. And that, like you said, it could bring them back together.
Yeah, there was a lot of rumors, when the Red Wings were looking for a coach. If you recall here recently, that there was a big group of media members that thought that Fedorov was going to somehow, come out of the woodwork here and coach the Red Wings, and I don't know that was ever really on the table. I can't say it wasn't, obviously, but I think there's a lot of public repair that needs to happen first before that's even on the table. Very similar situation to the Barry Sanders and Megatron situation with the Lions. Both phenomenal athletes left the Lions because, quite frankly, they stunk, and they felt like they offered better to the public, than they did to the Lions. And Barry specifically spoke in his his show on Amazon there. If you ever got a chance to check it out, Barry, spoke about his love for football was gone, and so that's one thing. But Megatron specifically felt very slighted by the Lions, and so I think a similar thing has to happen with Fedorov. I think they have to publicly say, look, we understand that we may have made some mistakes. Regardless of whether you acknowledge that or not, we're willing to kind of extend that olive branch and, start the repair process, because I don't really think it's ever possible you're going to see Fedorov again unless something to that magnitude happens.
Yeah, that makes sense. We're talking old school stuff that he's learning.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I got the Fedorov jersey, and it was my first Wings jersey, was a Fedorov jersey.
I like Fedorov.
Yeah, I mean, I got the Fedorov doll. You were the Osgood guy. I was a big Fedorov guy back in the day. Had everything Fedorov, and then he left. It was my first major letdown. And Emery, you're going to experience it too. Yeah, you're going to experience it. I hate to. You mentioned Hutchinson, but I don't think he could ever leave. But some point, one of these guys is going to have to leave the Lions, or one of these guys that you've looked up to, and it's going to break your heart a little bit.
You can't pay them all, at the end of the day, and so you got to pick and choose who they're going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what else, Emery? Do you want to switch gears to talking football? We did have a question come in from Kara. Thanks for tuning in. Who is your favorite Wing? I don't know. We could all kind of answer this, but we'll start with Bret.
Yeah. So, Osgood is the easy one for me. Like I said, Hasek or Osgood, either one are going to be up there for me just as a goalie. A little bias there, but, I always idolize both of them differently, in a way growing up. And as you mentioned, Hasek was so good before he even got here. It was easy to like him, and so I would say that's my pick.
Cool. Emery? Emery's just getting into just starting last year was his first real exposure. I mean, he went to a Wings game when he was young. Last year was his first exposure with hockey deeply.
Okay.
Who's your most favorite Red Wing that you've met? How about that, Emery?
Met?
Yeah.
Oh, Pavel Datsuk.
There you go. Good
Very
choice.
nice. Good choice.
Yeah, So something for me, I'm gonna bring this up again. I don't like to choose favorites. So I don't know. As a kid, definitely Fedorov was my favorite. And then growing up, into the early 2000s, Datsuk, I probably would have chose. We have another big question from none other than Dan Falquist, which you might know, Brett.
Oh boy.
He says,
I wonder what this could be.
who is your favorite beer league player?
It's not Dan, I can tell you that much. It's not. And quite frankly, the opposite. I can't even believe he asked that live. Actually, I can. I love Dan a lot. He is secretly, one of my favorite beer league players, but if he wants to continue to stay my favorite, he needs to stop scoring goals on me. So if he could actually take it easy when we play each other, I would probably like him a little more.
So you guys aren't on the same team?
No, I've subbed for him a couple times, but no, he won't invite me.
So I had mentioned before with you guys that I'd played with him. We were playing roller hockey, indoor roller hockey for a while. And I just wanted to get into it with a buddy. And we were like on a bronze league and just having fun. And then Dan's like, Bobby, come play on our platinum league. I'm like, dude, I can't play. I think it was platinum. I'm like, I can't play platinum. And so, but I subbed, I think, a couple times. And it was just, back then, we're talking dang near 20 years ago, I think. I mean, it was right after.
Well, Dan can't skate platinum anymore either, so don't let him fool you.
Well, 20 years ago, he was pretty quick. He was good. And roller hockey, I don't know if you ever played, so he said 2006, 2007. It's a smaller rink, and it seemed like that much faster paced. It was a good time. But yeah, Dan, those were good memories. We used to do drop in quite a bit and have fun back then. But all right, cool.
That's awesome.
All right, Emery, do we want to talk about the first one or no?
Not really.
All right. What do you got? So he was not. So you got to correct that.
Yeah. So you were not at the Red Wings versus Columbus game, but what?
I'm sure that he watched.
Yeah.
It.
Did you watch it?
I did. Yep. I watched it most of the way. I missed a few minutes ish in the middle, but I watched most of it.
What were your thoughts on it? Kind of.
Yeah, let's hear. Everybody's talking about one specific play, it seems like. What's your thoughts?
Well, I want to first, state that, the game they played Thursday was terrible. They were very underprepared, it looked like, and just kind of lackadaisical. And, and typical of McClellan's team so far has been they rebound very well. And I would say overall they did that on Saturday. They fired a ton of shots on Merzlikins, and for the most part, he was an absolute brick wall. Made a couple of really, really great stops, and offensively from that standpoint, you really cannot ask a ton more from your team. I thought I was a little underwhelmed by how Talbot played. Some of those goals were not necessarily his fault either, but in those moments, you want your better players to stand or to step up, and so obviously I thought he could have done a little more there. The play in question, obviously, the high stick there that ultimately was the game-winning goal. I agree was a penalty. I think there's not a ton of doubt in anybody's mind, whether watching it live or 50 times over. But at the end of the day, I really liked the accountability that McClellan had afterwards and says, we can't be in that position, and that's what I think has changed a lot with this team is like at the end of the day, he's called Larkin out, he's called, goaltending out, he's called anybody out, himself out even, and say, look, like somebody is accountable for these losses or a group of, you guys. And I think that the team has responded well. You're going to have games like this where you just have to tip your cap, to the other team. And honestly, with the whole Gaudreau thing and the emotions of that, the outdoor moment, it being on their home turf essentially, for obvious reasons. And sometimes you just, again, like Larkin said it best, like, you have to almost like tip your cap to those moments, and good for the Gaudreau family. Statistically, it stinks. I mean, the Red Wings lost 4 points against a team that was right behind them, and now they're hanging on by a fringe on the second wild card spot. And we're running out of games here. I mean, currently, yes, they're in a spot, but they need to start stringing some games together. They've lost 4 or 5 now. Not looked super awesome, like overall, aside for this game. Since they came back from the break either. So, just kind of looking for them to step it up here and make a really good run. But I'm not off the bandwagon yet at all.
So yeah, that kind of. So like, you think that they will make the playoffs then?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they still had Lalonde, I tell you, it's a 0 chance they make the playoffs. I think with what I've seen from McClellan, obviously they've cooled off a bit since the hot start, but a lot of his subtle changes, have been big changes overall. They're a very positive, net record overall since he's taken over. Their penalty killing has gotten better. Their goals for has gotten better. Their goals against has gotten better. Statistically across the board, they're a better team. And I mean, with a Lalonde coach team who I was very underwhelmed by from the start, really. The guy showed no emotion at all when they were winning or losing. I mean, it didn't seem like he really cared that much or knew how to fix it. McClellan shows a ton of emotion, I think, and has been there. He's coached several teams that have been to the playoffs. He knows what it takes to win. He's got a lot of veterans on the team that also know what it takes to win. They just need to experience it together. Larkin, I think is very, very hungry to make the playoffs. This Four Nations run that he had here, he played very, very, very well. If you guys watch that, and I think he's ready for the chance to shine, in the playoffs. And so I do think this may be an opportunity for them to sneak in. But darn it, if Washington doesn't start losing games, I just don't get it how Ovechkin keeps scoring goals.
Well, yeah, he's trying to hit that record, I think.
I'm telling you what.
So, what's the second question there?
Did you put that in?
Yeah.
I don't even know what it's about.
So, right now, the Wings, so they made some moves, freed up some cap space. And so the talk right now is should they make a trade before the deadline? I think the deadline's this Friday at noon or something like that. So there's a lot of talk right now of should they make a trade? Who should they trade for? Or what should they trade for? So what's your thoughts, Brett?
So we talked about this on our show the other day too, and Husso was somebody that started very well for them, originally in his first year, and whatever happened with this injury that's been really hush-hush, I don't know if it was a much more major injury or if it was more mental and they just don't want to publicly talk about. Something happened to Husso and he fell off a cliff. And so there was zero reason to keep him around, especially at that cap hit. He was dead weight. So to get rid of that, or get rid of him, and free up that space is going to come in handy. And I do think this is the year they use it. I'm not a huge, Andrew Kopp fan, but losing him for the season, there's a lot of things he does well. He's very good on the penalty kill. He is more of a defensive guy. He's not going to give you a ton offensively, so you're not missing a ton there. You definitely could slot somebody in that's better in that department, but at what cost? I'm not giving up premier prospects for a rental unless the dude blows me away and is above and beyond player. There's been some talk about getting Dylan Cousins from Buffalo, but then you're looking at giving up somebody like Carter Mazur, or you're giving up, Nate Danielson, some top tier prospects, or like Marco Casper on your current roster now, or Soderblom. Like those are some big time guys, and then on top of that, you're now throwing picks together because that's what Buffalo wants. And a lot of these mock trades I'm seeing are just, I understand you got to give up to get somebody good. I just don't know if you can mortgage the future so bad, just to get somebody, unless he's, in my opinion, if you're giving up that kind of haul, he needs to give you this year and next year at least.
And probably almost guarantee you a good playoff run, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I think, they're looking for an offensive guy to some degree, but I don't think they're out on the defensive market either if the price is right. They were in on a couple of trades here that, have been rumored or completed. Lindgren was one of them. So, they've been sniffing around, but Stevie's not going to make a deal that sells the future. I think he's going to wait for the right one. I do like his patience, and it's paid off. Overall, in trades, Stevie's typically won trades. So, I'm okay with trusting the process, but you need to go out this year and need to get somebody. This is year to be a little less conservative. You've got too many guys to actually play, so you got to balance that as well.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what happens the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
So, all right, are we done? We've talked a lot of hockey tonight. I think Brett's the new hockey guru. Whenever we have questions about hockey, he's our hockey guy.
Yeah. I don't know that much about hockey.
Yeah, you're going to learn.
Or basketball.
What's funny is you mentioned, Brad, about growing up in skates. So before I had Emery, I think it was even before we got married, but I was big into hockey, and I had always said my kids are going to learn to skate before they can walk. Yeah. And I did not hold myself to that obligation.
I skate till I was 7. Something.
Oh, when did 2020?
7. I was born in 20,
you're
born in 2018.
2020.
I was born in 2013.
Yeah. So we live on a lake, and so the first winter it would have been 21. Yeah. So you were 7. That was his first time ice skating, and the hope was that we were going to have some good pond hockey days. That first year we did. The second year I think we did.
No, the second year I don't
know. There's last couple years were crappy. This year we've had decent ice. We had some time out there.
Some of the best hockey out on the pond, in my opinion.
Yeah, and last year we played some driveway pavement hockey too for a bit. We had the TV going on in the garage, listening to some playoff hockey, and
there you go.
It was fun.
Yeah, I've got 3 kids, and my oldest, has played lacrosse, which is a really good substitute. It's field hockey essentially, and so it was easy to adapt to. And my daughter, she has played some lacrosse and stuff here, but my youngest is the first hockey player, and he actually wants to play goalie, so that's obviously special for me. So, but he's 5, so we're trying to see how that goes going forward. It might just be a fling, but hopefully he sticks with it, which I'm sure he will.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mentioned that. I didn't say goalie. I said you should be a catcher this year in baseball.
Yeah.
But goalie, the nice thing about being goalie, you pretty much always get ice time, right?
No question there. Sometimes you get more than you ask for,
Everybody needs a goalie. So
that's right.
All right, so let's switch gears here. This is the question of the night.
Yeah, and at the end of this should probably wrap us up, do you think?
Yeah.
So this is going to be our last main big topic, the controversial question. Should we hop on the Pistons bandwagon?
Yes.
Let's ask.
I'll tell you why.
Is Bret on the bandwagon?
Yeah, are you on the bandwagon?
I'm on the bandwagon, and I'll tell you why. So, a couple of years ago, obviously last year with Monty Williams, originally I was very skeptical of that hire to begin with, because I think a lot of his, personal statistics, if you will, as a coach, were relying on having several all-stars, in Phoenix. And, leaving that and going to a rebuilding team that, had a bunch of young talent, but a lot of different personalities and a lot of question marks, quite frankly, to prove themselves is a completely different challenge. And Monty was never ready for that. It's not to discredit Monty as a guy. If you recall, his wife had some cancer issues right when he got hired. And so then that was kind of, overhanging him. And I don't blame him 100%. But it just really wasn't the right fit. JB Bickerstaff has proven, with Cleveland and now with the Pistons, that the dude can coach ball. And he has made every team that he has coached better. And as I alluded to earlier, Cade Cunningham needed a guy like JB Bickerstaff coaching him. He's been phenomenal and instrumental in his development. Jaden Ivey, prior to the broken leg, was really looking really good. Malik Beasley has been the damn near the best 3-point shooter in the league. He's looked awesome. Been very impressed with him. Duran has finally turned into a dominant big man and has continued to get better. He's a rebounding machine. So, this team is young. They got energy. They're hungry for a playoff spot. They lost a ton of games in the last couple of years. And I think, to some degree, this team's tired of losing. The town's tired of losing. And, they're 7 games above 500 now. So it's starting to feel like the team has some legitimacy to it. Obviously, we were a little skeptical earlier in the season. But they've strung together now several months of winning basketball. They've won the last several months overall record-wise to prove it's not just been a run. And so, yeah, I'm all over the bandwagon. I can't say they're going to go in and win the title, but to make the first round, to make the playoffs and possibly maybe win a round, I don't think it's far-fetched. I mean, last I checked, they were a game out of 4th place in the East behind the Bucks, and they've got a pretty darn good player on their team, I'd say. So, this team is for real.
Who's on their team? Giannis?
Giannis.
I like to call him Giannis, and Emery does not like it.
Freak.
Yeah.
I actually have a Giannis jersey, but
yeah,
it's not a bad one to have. He's a pretty darn good player.
yeah, I think it's crazy that he can just dunk over people.
Yeah, he is a special ball player. I mean, and props to the Bucks for finding him, because as you know, not a lot of guys are scouting out that way. So he's been revolutionary, honestly, since he's came over.
How tall is he?
He's 6'11" or 7 foot or something like that.
Yeah, he's big. He can do it all too.
Emery's...
Really, he can shoot. He can dunk. He's athletic. He can do anything you want. He's super strong. You can't take him off the ball. I mean, he's one of the top 5 players in the league still, in my opinion. And, for the Pistons to be right on his team's tail speaks a lot to how they've done. And again, how the coaching staff has put them in this position every night. And, and I also like to, just to add that, if there's a game that Bickerstaff feels like his team got slighted, he's not afraid to go out and say, look, our team did what it took to win. He's not necessarily blaming refs per se, but he's willing to fight for his guys, and the team respects the hell out of him for that. And you can tell by the way they play. This team has a completely different energy than they've had in recent seasons.
Yeah.
So are you ready to join? So our buddy Zach was on here a couple weeks ago, and he had told Emery, what did he tell you?
He told me a lot of things, but
Before Christmas, what was he saying?
He was like, Emery, I'm telling you, by the time Christmas rolls around, you're going to be asking for a Cade Cunningham jersey. You're going to be Pistons 24/7. He was and stuff, and yeah,
Here you are.
I know how that's. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we should join the bandwagon, I'd say, but I just feel like basketball is not as exciting to watch as some other sports. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
you're saying.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm much more a March Madness guy for energy, compete level. I like the surprises. I like the Cinderella story. Every single season, it seems like there's a Wichita State or a Chicago Loyola or something like that. The NBA, to me, as a product, is kind of boring, to be honest with you. And I've talked about that several times on our show. The All-Star game was really underwhelming as well. I mean, it seems like a whole bunch of just screwing around now. And there's just no defense. It's literally just, okay, go ahead and walk down and shoot a 3. It's crazy. And so, again, obviously, as far as the bandwagon goes, obviously you can look at that separately, but yeah, I agree with you on that.
What was the score that one Pistons game?
The game, hold on, let me check so I get this,
before our last podcast.
No, this was last week.
Yeah.
They played the Atlanta Hawks. They won 148 to 143. There was 291 points scored.
That's
ridiculous. But then the next
I
game, it was 90 to 80 something, wasn't it?
This one? This week?
No, the next game after that one, it was lower scoring. I don't know what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it was last year's All-Star game that combined for almost 400 points. I mean, that's ridiculous. Like something's got to change. And the Four Nations this year, for hockey showed you kind of how things can be done and how players take a special pride in playing for their country. And kind of level up, if you will, to give a better product. And obviously, that's what the fans want. So the NBA should follow suit, in my opinion, in that regard. Figure out a way to make that product better because ratings have gone down several years in a row now, and I think a lot of people are losing interest in the product. But I am looking forward to March Madness. I am really excited to see how that goes this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't. How do you? What was that guy's name for Michigan?
Will like
Chatter.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
What do you? Yeah. So, what's your thoughts on Michigan losing a couple games here recently?
So I went to the game on Thursday, and they played Rutgers at home, and
that was a good game.
This team is drastically better than last year's team under Juwan Howard. They were 8-24 last year. They were absolutely dead last in the Big Ten, and they were really bad, honestly, across all facets of the game. And Dusty May has very clearly done big things with the team this year. And I mean, they're, like you mentioned, 22-6 or 22-7 now, or whatever it is. And they're now a game out of first place in the Big Ten. I mean, Michigan State's looking like another Izzo coach team. I mean, always impressive year after year after year. And but overall, very impressed with the team. I'm a little concerned with the last several weeks. They've gone ice cold in shooting. I mean, at one point in that Rutgers game, early in the second half, they were shooting under 20% from three. But they were shooting like 48% from the field, which a lot of Michigan's offense runs through the two big guys, Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden. There's not many teams out there that boast 2 7-footers in the front court. But they don't have a ton of shooters. Will Shutter is really good for a bigger guy. He's very streaky. Trey Donaldson, again, same thing, kind of streaky. Roddy Gale, aside from the Ohio State game where he obviously transferred from, has kind of been underwhelming. Jones is more of a defender. Reuben Jones is more of a defender. I mean, there's just been a lot of clunkiness, if you will, sometimes to that fit. And Amari Burnett's been lights out from three, I will say, and obviously had the game winner that night against Rutgers. But a lot of the same issues arise. I mean, they get down and they can't really shoot themselves out of a slump. They can't shoot themselves out of a deficit because they need to go through the big guys. And if you take care of them, teams have now shown the formula to beat Michigan. Do I think that they're going to win a couple of games? I do think they may make it to the Sweet 16 at best. I would consider that a very successful season in year one with Dusty May, but I just don't see him going much further. They miss kind of that id factor this year, so I think that's where, as they recruit and they continue to build some of his classes. They got Trey McKinney coming in next season, a Flint native, 5-star recruit, big-time basketball player for Orchard St. Mary's. And so I'm really excited to see what he can do, but, as far as this year, again, very happy with the team, but I think there's going to be a little left to be desired by the end of the season.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we enjoy watching March Madness. It's fun because I like how it's like every day pretty much kind of, and then if you lose you're just done.
Yeah, those guys are trying to, I mean, they're playing to win. And back to the Pistons or NBA, these guys have guaranteed money. And I think that's somehow is what they got to figure out. These salaries these guys are getting paid are just ridiculous, and it's guaranteed money, and it needs to be somehow performance based. And you could go across all the different pro leagues to some extent with that, but definitely the NBA somehow make it performance based.
I would say aside, hockey is the least paid. I mean, as far as obviously the WNBA is severely underpaid in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Women are just as good as the men in a lot of ways. They just don't have maybe quite as some of the physicality, if you will, just by size wise. Don't get me wrong. Don't take for a second that they're not physical. They just, size wise, a little bit smaller naturally, but other than that, just as good. And their salaries are by far the worst, and that needs to change. And Caitlin Clark is changing that. But hockey players are very, very underpaid, all things considered. $50 million for a baseball player or $50 million for a basketball player is ridiculous. Unless, like you said, it's tied to, okay, fine, you get your $50 million, but you're playing 82 games. And every game you don't play, you lose X amount of dollars. And if you make the all-star team, you get another bonus. And if you lead your team to the playoffs, maybe you get this bonus. And, maybe, you have a very light guarantee overall. But you're right. Something's got to change. And I don't know what the formula exactly is, but the product has definitely decreased.
Yeah, they could make it percentage based or something.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at like Shohei Ohtani, crazy contract, but the guy showed up. I mean, he was still great. But he's just a whole different character. But look at NFL, you could argue some big contracts there.
Not baseball, they're just way bigger though.
Yeah, some of the baseball ones. Emery was looking them up the other day. What were some of them?
I don't know. Like, what's weird is it's like, I forget, it was like Mike Trout, Manny Machado, and like Francisco Lindor. There's like a $1 million gap between each of them. Like, they pretty much all make the same amount of money. And then it's like $700 million Shohei Ohtani.
Well, Shohei, you got to think, though. I mean, if you think about a premium starting pitcher, and then a premium batter in the lineup, I mean, those two players combined probably make about $700 million on max deals or mega deals. So it's honestly not that unrealistic when you look at the fact that he does provide the Dodgers two premium positions in one guy, and so it leaves them actually an extra roster spot, which is invaluable. And so even if that guy's a back end starter, maybe a number 5 starter, he's getting paid $15-20 million. I mean, look at the Tigers just signed an almost retired Alex Cobb for 1 year, $15 million. I mean, he hasn't had an ERA under 4 in the last couple of years. He's been hurt every single season, and he literally stated that he was ready to retire, and then he got a random $15 million offer from the Tigers. So, like, when you look at it like that, I mean, it's not that unrealistic. Now, it scares the hell out of people, at $700 million. And, for us regular folk, it definitely is. But, when you break it down in the sports world, he really is offering you, two premium players at market rate, while also giving you an additional roster spot. And so, also the thing to keep in mind too is I saw an example of like the Patrick Mahomes contract that he got. It was like a couple years ago. It was 10 years, $500 million or whatever. And after his taxes and they pay into the insurance and they pay for benefits and all these other things, he's bringing home, on a $50 million a year salary, he's bringing home like $24 million, which is still a ton of money, but I mean, it's less than half.
Yeah.
Yeah, the money is nuts.
Yeah.
But I think, somehow, if they performance-based, I think is the only way to do it. But what's your last question there? What you could talk, he already answered the question about Michigan, thinks that they could make to the Sweet 16.
I just want to say one thing real quick. I am a huge LA Dodgers believer, pretty much. I love Shohei Ohtani. He's like, I think he's the GOAT, but that's kind of controversial.
Tough to say this early. I think he's trending though.
Yeah, I think that the Dodgers, I mean, they have Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, and then they have Yamamoto and then Sasaki or whatever. They're just stacked. They really are just a stacked team.
Yeah, they're going to make a decent push this year.
Yeah.
And I saw
a lot
with
of
the
people
Tigers
hate that. They outspend everybody, but I love it, to be honest with you. I think it's good for the sport of baseball, to be honest.
Yeah, it gets people talking and watching. I saw Matt Vierling is injured again, so
yeah, I guess he was a little surprised by the injury, which, a lot of guys are tough, and so he didn't think it was as severe as it later turned out to be. Austin Meadows has got a nerve issue now after his shoulder issue, so that's a little concerning. I mean, it's unrealistic to expect the Tigers have solid health overall like they did, and I say that because their pitching staff was decimated, but like hitting-wise, most of the position players were fairly healthy overall. Kerry Carpenter, they're arguably their best hitter, did miss some time, and the team immediately was better when he came back. So, and obviously, Riley Green missed some more time, which is frustrating. But overall, I mean, if they can have similar health or close to, I think they have a chance as well. But they haven't added anybody. And so you're banking on to repeat. And a lot of these metrics are like not consistent year to year. So I do worry about that.
Yeah. Real quick, we do have Mel from Tallahassee. Thanks for tuning in. Glad that you're here. So yeah, a couple comments from her. She said, too much expansion is the problem. Too many teams. You water down the league, which definitely could argue that. And then the contracts do have performance-based incentives written in all the leagues, I believe. I think it does, I'm sure to some extent, but I don't know. Somehow they need to make it.
It just needs to be a bigger percentage of the contract, to change that. I think it's like, I mean, it's one thing to go out and have, if you're getting paid $50 million a year, but to go out and have $1 million bonus to make the playoffs, I mean, you're like, all right, fine. I mean, I miss my weekly allowance. Like, it's no big deal. But, if you tied, say, $40 million of it, okay, now you got my attention, so maybe that's just a matter of how they structure them. But I do agree that has been a thing for several years. They just need to up those percentages if they're going to go that route.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to look into it more, but it's got to be as simple as just like, percentage base. You look at the NFL, they've got 17 games or whatever it is, and how much money they're bringing in those games. And then playoffs obviously have to be bringing in more money. So how does that weigh? And then if you make it to the Super Bowl, obviously that's that much more money. So I don't know. There's got to be some sort of percentages built in, percentage bonuses. I don't know what it is. And NFL,
they're a
I don't
big
think you see it
business.
as
I mean,
much.
I think they can figure it out. I think they got enough money to go around. They should be able to figure it out with all those smart big wigs in the front office.
Yeah. And the NFL is pretty competitive. There's less games. Yeah. And hockey, I think, is... I like hockey. I think it's generally pretty competitive. You don't see too many slouches out there. Baseball, I think you could argue it, and definitely the NBA. But what's your last question?
So I just want to say one thing, just real quick. Is Javier Baez healthy to return?
From what I understand, he's feeling as good as ever. I don't really know what that means because I'm not a Javi Baez fan. I wasn't a Javi Baez fan in Chicago. I mean, he's been a free swinger forever. And to me, he felt like he was very much a desperation signing by Al Avila after he missed on Carlos Correa, which he did several times. And so, to me, that contract stunk from day one. And to expect him to go out and bat even 275, 280, 20 home runs and 80 plus RBIs every season was unrealistic from the get-go. He has vastly underperformed from that mark. So I would only hope that he gets a little better from what he's been because he's been awful. And so, I mean, you got to justify that money. I mean, to me, this was a pivotal offseason, for the Tigers to either release him and just cut bait or to give him one more chance. And clearly they've decided to give him one more chance. But I think if he goes out and lays an egg in the first month or two of the season again, I think you might see him get designated for assignment and just eat the money because it's at that point he's just eating money and killing a roster spot for a kid that honestly anybody you call up's got to be better.
That's batting average, right?
Yeah, this is current stats for just spring training, but
his current batting average is .167.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, so 6 at bats, 1 hit.
Wait, is Spencer Torkelson on the team?
And
Torkelson did hit a homer, I heard, on day 2.
Yeah, he's here.
Wait, hold on. Click on it. It's a
Torkelson 1 home run. Yeah,
it's a 231.
Yeah, 231. That's pretty good. I mean, it's
just low. I mean, it's a low average.
Low.
If he's hitting for a ton of power, you can get away with that, but he's not.
Carpenter.
So he needs to pump that up one way or another. You either got to hit for average or you got to hit for power, and if you're doing neither, you ain't gonna last long.
Yeah. Perry Carpenter's 400.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got to be at the top of the order.
He already has 6 home runs.
No, one
Or 1. That's
6
one.
hits
Yeah.
out of 15.
Yeah. Okay. I see.
It's all right. What's our question? We've been last questioning it here for 10 minutes.
Yeah. How far of a playoff run do you think the Pistons will make?
I think they can get through the first round at least. They did beat Boston the other night, so they've proven that and of course they've beaten other teams too, this season. So it's unrealistic to sit here and say they can't beat, a big time team. I do think that just with as young as they are, it's going to be hard for some of these kids that haven't really won at that high level yet, to expect them to go out and win a best of 7 against Boston. I mean, sometimes that veteran present, veteran experience, veteran coaching just naturally dominates in the playoff atmosphere. So, could they go in and beat, an Atlanta Hawks team? Yeah. Could they go in and beat, and I say just some of your lower, East type of teams that could get in? Yes. Do I think they beat a best of 7 against Boston? No. No, I don't. I don't think it's unrealistic to say they can't do that in the next couple of years, especially if they keep up this style of basketball and grow a little more. I think they absolutely will be major contenders in the East, which is not that strong to begin with. But I just think right now this would be a year early to see a really super magical run to like the NBA Finals. I just think it's a year early, at least.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think that they'll make it past the first round probably. I mean, they'll probably start off like really strong and then like I don't know.
It's all these games that going into a 7-game series. It's a lot of emotion.
I feel like it's just too many games.
Hype.
Like with so is every game a 7-game series?
Every
Best
round.
of 7.
Yeah. Yep.
I feel like it should be like baseball where it's like best of like 3 or whatever. In the
Well, it
first
depends on
round.
what
round,
series
it's
you're in.
best
They
of
have a
5 or
different
whatever.
length of series depending on what round you're in. World Series is 7 games.
I think it's like the first round, isn't it? They do best of 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which you could, but listen, NBA wants their money, and the more games they got, the more people are watching on TV, and but yeah. All right, I think that's it for.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Bret, really appreciate you joining us tonight. Before we lose you here, we're gonna remove you from the studio, but just stay put, and we'll touch base with you immediately after.
Okay.
Why don't you share one more time where everybody can find you and follow you guys?
Yeah, so we're Mitten State Sports Corner. So we're on Facebook, we're on Spotify, iHeart, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, Instagram, TikTok. So we're on all of the major platforms. But if you ever want a chance to be on the show, just as I am with these guys here, don't hesitate to reach out. We always love having guests on the show.
Yeah, they've got a great show. We've been listening in, and
We're on one of their podcasts.
yeah, it's grateful to be on there as well, and plan on doing more with you guys. I know you got the big, what is it? The big card show coming up there.
Yep.
In a couple weeks. What's that one called?
Yeah.
Vehicle City.
Vehicle
So that
City.
one's going to be at Dort Financial Center. It's going to be a lot of athletes there. It's going to be a pretty big day. We'll do quite a few interviews and stuff. So looking forward to that. You guys are going to that, correct?
Well, we'd like to. I think I mentioned to you, it's like the same weekend of like spring break.
Oh, that's right.
And I think we're going to be out of town, unfortunately, because it's
Right.
going to be an awesome show.
Yeah.
So for those of you guys listening still that are around, definitely check that out. It's going to be a great show. Who's Corey Schlesinger? Who else?
Koser, McCarty.
Koser.
Yeah. Andre Rison, Braylon Edwards will be there. So
Edwards,
quite a
yep.
few different athletes across the the big sports.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome event. And then you guys are going to be recording live?
We will be recording live, and then we'll be doing some interviews and stuff with those guys behind the scenes as well. So we'll be able to give you guys some insider. If you guys, for those of you that might come check us out, if you got any questions you want me to ask them, let us know.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. I mean, I'm sure we're going to have a great time on our spring break trip, but
Yeah.
wishing that we could be there too. So, again,
On the
thanks,
next
Brett. Yeah,
No problem.
for joining us. Sorry, Brett with 2 T's couldn't be here, but we'll try to have you guys on again. And
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a great time.
yeah, thank you.
No problem.
See you later.
See ya.
All right, Emery. So here's my question to you. Brett did his best to convince us. Is it time to join the bandwagon?
Stay tuned next. No, I'm kidding.
Stay tuned next week.
Yeah, I mean,
Because if we join the bandwagon, you got to understand, like, we gotta start watching some games. You know, we have watched some, but like we're gonna have to.
we only watch them when there's no football and no hockey and no baseball, but or not baseball, but
So are we gonna start watching some Pistons games?
yeah. I mean, he has me pretty convinced. So
The more he talked, what Zach had been saying, I'm not opposed to joining the bandwagon. I'm going to do it cautiously. Here's the question: should we potentially each week we try to wear something? We got our maize and blue on. Emery's got his jersey. We try to wear some jerseys. We do have a couple Pistons jerseys that we could shake the dust off and potentially wear them.
yeah, I mean, I think it's time. These things haven't been worn in years. No.
Mine are 20 years old, probably. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I'd like to get behind a good Pistons team though. Again, it was fun.
And to be clear, like, we're not gonna be hopping on like the Lions bandwagon. Like the Lions, we like watch every game, are ready for every game. Like we get like really behind the Lions. I don't think we're gonna get that far in on the Pistons, but
We're gonna ease our way in maybe a little bit.
for
Make sure that the train's not running towards running off the tracks. I don't think it is though. I really do think that this Pistons team is pretty good,
Yeah.
and I think we'll be on a safe route to join them, especially into the playoffs.
I'll
It's
say
kinda
if-
exciting.
if they make if they somehow win the NBA Finals, then we'll like heavy join it.
One last question, Emery, and then we'll get out of here. At what point are you going to be coming to me asking for a Cade Cunningham jersey? What will it take? Because last year, I mean, you were wanting a Shohei Ohtani jersey.
Yeah, I
I mean, you were.
my things change a lot right before everything, pretty much. So very indecisive when it comes to like Christmases and birthdays. But I mean, I don't know. They'll have to make a somewhat of a run in the playoffs, and then he has to be performing next season.
We'll see. Here's my prediction, and then we're out of here. Some point during the first round of the playoffs,
I'm gonna give up and sit.
or after, let's say if they win the first round, Emery will be like all over it and he'll be all in. He'll be wanting a Cade Cunningham jersey.
Yeah, and then if they like lose one game, I'll be like, well, they lost.
Yeah,
Yep,
then he'll
over.
be giving up. And
Yeah.
so, all right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Mel, we had quite a few viewers steady. It looked around like 7 or 8 viewers, 6 or 7 viewers the whole time. So thank you guys for tuning in, watching. Those listening, appreciate you guys listening. Again, it was great to have Bret on from Mitten State Sports Corner. We have the link to his show in the comments. Be sure to check them out. Emery, you ready for the closing song here?
Yeah. Just be sure to follow us on all of our streaming main
Platforms?
Yeah.
There you go. And again, next week We'll be back at it Sunday evening around 7 p.m. Let's close it out with our song. I didn't get to use the voice too much tonight. Had to keep it low key for Bret. Didn't want to scare him.
Thanks for tuning in to the Sports Kid Podcast.
See ya. Have a blessed week.